Howdy wise women, we are talking about nutrition this week, and in this video we're going to cover the 4 components of a very healthy diet, the 4 components of traditional eating, I should say. So this philosophy is based off of a book called Deep Nutrition by Dr. Catherine Shanahan. If you haven't gotten it, go ahead. I've got the 11 books that every woman should read. It is definitely on there. This book changed the way that I approach nutrition coaching with people, with my clients, but also with myself, okay? And so what it is, it's based on the studies of what are the components that every single culture, what are the food components that every single culture has in common, okay? And like traditional eating, so we think about like there are hundreds, if not thousands of traditional ethnic eating, and everybody eats different food, but the foods often have something in common. And they have these 4 things in common, is that every traditional diet is full of fresh food, it's full of fermented food, it's full of meat off the bone, and it's full of offals, I believe. I've only ever read that word, but basically organ meats, okay? So fresh, fermented, off the bone, and from the organ, all right? So let's talk about why these are very, very important to have in your nutritional repertoire, okay? So supplements are supplements. They are supplemental to a healthy diet. And there are a lot of people out there that believe you cannot get everything that you need from your nutrition. And I fundamentally do not believe that. We are big, strong people. In my family, everybody's over 6 feet tall, and doorways across the world have been raised by 6 inches in the last 200 years. And that's because people have enough nutrition to grow big and strong. Okay. If you don't have enough nutrition, you're going to be small and weak. That is just how epigenetics plays out. Okay. So I believe that we can get everything we need from nutrition, but we definitely need to focus on these 4 food groups: fermented, fresh, off the bone, and from the organs, okay? So let's start with fresh. Fresh is a basic concept. We all kind of know the importance of fresh food, the fiber, the vitamins, the yummies, mostly the fiber and the vitamins, okay? But also the chewing. Chewing keeps our jaw nice and healthy. It keeps our nasal cavities all strong. It keeps our teeth broad and our jaws handsome. So fresh is, of course, the things like the salads and the fruits and the vegetables. Of course, when you cook your vegetables, you never want to fully cook them till they're soft. You always want to leave them a little bit, at least al dente if you're steaming stuff. Steaming is best. Light steam, just soften the outside, make it a little easier to chew, make it a little greener, and you should be good to go. But all of your vegetables most of your vegetables should largely be fresh, okay, and fresh-ish. All right, so this is the way that we get, because vitamins are very, they're sensitive components, right? So there are a couple things that changes the nature of proteins, denature proteins, and one of them is heat, okay? And that is something that will kill vitamins over and over and over again. So even though if you're eating a lot of vegetables, if they're all cooked, we have to rethink the way that we're consuming these vegetables, because there is a totally valid question of whether or not we're getting the vitamins we need from them, okay? So fresh vegetables. Another really wonderful way for fresh vegetables is sprouting. Sprouting is so cheap and it's so easy. And if you just have sprouting stuff going like at once, like you would always have fresh greenery in your house, like literally no matter what time of year it is. That's one of the most wonderful things about sprouts, okay? So that was fresh. The second one is fermented. Fermented is so fantastic. And the reason why we find it all over the world is because we couldn't save all of these fresh vegetables that were harvested during the spring and summer. We had to plant seasonally and be able to save our fruits and vegetables over the course of the year, right? So what do we do with fruits? We tended to make alcohol out of them, full of fermented goodness, that beer and wine. As long as it's natural, usually the stuff that we have in the States is pasteurized, which means it is boiled, all the fermentation is out, and then in beer they put the carbonation back in, which is very sad. But We can get, yes, we can get fermented stuff from stuff like sauerkraut and kimchi. You can do pickles. I personally always supplement. I take a shot, just a mouthful of, or shot glass of apple cider vinegar after dinner every night. And that is wonderful for the gut biome, the gut health, and then also consequently our mental and emotional health. I can't explain to you how much better my life has gotten simply because I am taking my probiotics in the form of apple cider vinegar. In fact, it's better than when I was spending $50 a month on really awesome probiotics. Shot of apple cider vinegar, folks. But just keep an open mind of having fermented food in your life. It's super easy to pickle stuff. I've made my own sauerkraut before. It's really, really good. All right, so the third one is meat off the bone. And the reason why we're talking meat off the bone is because it is near the bone marrow. Bone marrow is like, that is the origin of life. That is where red blood cells are made in that bone marrow. So anytime, and it's fatty tissue. So when hunter and gatherers scrounging through the plains and come across dead animals, and they would eat the bone marrow because it was fatty and it was highly, highly, highly nutritious. The closer we eat to that bone marrow, the more nutritious that meat is going to be. It's going to be full of cosamine and collagen and all these wonderful things that keep your skin nice and healthy and taut. Also just things that are extremely good for you. So any kind of like bone marrow or meat off the bone is super fantastic. Bone broth, that's why bone broth is the hugest craze now. And bone broth you can use for anything. In fact, anywhere where there's water, you can replace it with bone broth. So I even make my oatmeal in the morning. If I have oatmeal in the morning, I make it with bone broth. And I still put honey on it. I also make rice with bone broth. When I'm cooking any kind of ground meat, I'll put some bone broth in there. Bone broth. You can just figure out ways to take it with you. Also, bone broth makes a really fantastic protein shake. Doesn't sound super appealing, but trust me, like if you're, especially post-endurance races, if you're one like a cyclist or a runner, you're actually the person that needs the protein shakes a little bit more than weightlifters because there's actually like a protein breakdown there. And the state of our stomach, you're not actually digesting so much food so easily because all the blood is shunted to your muscles. So there's not as much blood and energy being given to you so you can break food down. So drinking your protein is best. Bone broth is fantastic. It's salty, it's savory, it's got that sodium, it's got potassium, all those beautiful electrolytes in it, and it's got collagen for our skin, and it's got protein in it. So meat off the bone is awesome. This book made me change my feelings about chicken wings because I thought that chicken wings were the pistachio of meats. The work to meat ratio was really off for me. But now, because I know meat off the bone is good for you, I'm all for it. Okay, so always meat off the bones. Keep your bones, boil your bones, make some bone broth, and experiment with bone marrow. All right, so the last and final component is going to be one of those things that a lot of people have issues wrapping their heads around, but I don't understand it. It's because we're so far removed. So this is going to take a history lesson. So the finest cuts of meats is always the muscle, right? And in our Western world, we live in such a rich and fantastic country that even poor people don't get the organs and intestines. Okay, we're so rich that we're able to just sell huge chunks of backstrap and ribs and butt, which is bacon, and all that stuff. So and that's like great and that's fantastic, but really where all the nutrition is in the organ meats. In fact, in the wild, when bears and wolves attack elk and deer in order to eat them, they eat the stomach first. They eat from the stomach inside and will often just leave the rest of the body to its waste. So the first thing that the top of the food chain eats out there is the organ meats. Because the liver, the kidneys, the heart, they're full of vitamins. It's a different kind of meat. They're full of enzymes and so jam-packed with nutrition, it's almost unpalatable. And that's why people have such an aversion towards liver. when I first started eating liver, I was like, oh, this is a really strong taste. And I needed to get used to it. But I started to crave it because it is just so good for you. And if you're in your childbearing years or you're between children, you absolutely need liver in your diet. And you can do this in a number of ways. If you think liver is awful, first off, there are so many ways to make liver. And one of the most popular ways in my house to make liver is a liver meatloaf. We get a little bit of regular meat with a bunch of liver, and then we just make it like that. And that's a really wonderful way to ensure that your children and you and anybody else who's eating in your household is getting a whole lot of nutrition. Another way you can eat it is you can just get like liver and like make a pate, and then you can put it in the freezer in like really small ice cubes, and then you can just swallow it as like a whole like liver supplement. I know one nutritionist that hates liver but loves the benefits of liver, so this is what she does. And a third option is cod liver oil. I could wax poetic for hours about the benefits of cod liver oil, especially if you're in a country that doesn't get much sunshine, or a part of the world that doesn't, or a state that doesn't get much sunshine. Cod liver oil is your friend for all of the months that end in R, okay? So September, October, all the way up until basically May, okay? And that pretty much covers all the winter months. So get your liver in all the months get your cod liver oil in all the months that end in R, or that have an R in them. But even just eating things like kidneys and heart, it's so good for you. I truly can't express how incredibly healthy the organ meats are. And in fact, that is, if you're having issues in like the quality of your nutrition, adding stuff like this is going to be a huge turnaround point for you, and especially if you have children, making sure that during their growing years that they're getting all this kinds of nutrition. Now, I think liver and onions is a pretty intense way to eat liver. Just straight up liver steaks, that's for the men. And I'm not saying that in a gendered way. It's just for the really eggsy of you people and ladies and men, whoever wants to do it. But if you can do that, more power to you. We actually made liver tacos not that long ago, and it was pretty good. But anyway, see if you can get these 4 things into your diet as much as possible. Fresh, fermented, off the bone, and from the organs. And your life and your nutrition will change hugely for the better.